December 20th, 2024, just before midnight, the air around Fort Cavazos, Texas was thick with tension. The base stood silent under the cover of darkness, except for the unmarked vehicles moving swiftly through the back roads. Federal agents closed in on their target, a young soldier whose digital fingerprints had left a trail across the globe. Cameron John Wagenius had no idea the walls were closing in. Known only as Kiber Phantom in the shadowy corners of the internet, he had operated undetected for over a year. Working as a communications specialist stationed in South Korea, he, along with two other criminal hackers, had enough time on their hands to gain access to sensitive data. Data that had fueled a string of high-profile cyber extortions. But his time was up. Without warning, the silence shattered. The front door burst open, and armed agents flooded in. Wagenius barely had time to react before he was forced to the ground, hands wrenched behind his back. The room glowed with the eerie light of multiple screens. His double life had come to an abrupt end. In July, just before dawn, AT&T's headquarters buzzed with a quiet urgency. Executives huddled in tense meetings, their faces pale under the glow of conference room screens. The attack was swift and precise. Among the stolen records were private text messages, call logs, and sensitive customer details, enough to cause a corporate nightmare. Desperation set in. A decision was made in hushed conversations behind closed doors. AT&T would pay. Somewhere in the shadows, a hacker received $370,000, a price for silence, a deal made in digital whispers. But AT&T was far from alone. More than 160 other companies had fallen victim to the same breach. Ticketmaster, LendingTree, Advance Auto Parts, Neiman Marcus, to name a few. Their stolen data now scattered across the dark web like pieces of a shattered mirror. At first, it must have felt like stumbling upon an unlocked vault stuffed with gold. By the end of 2023, a group of malicious hackers had discovered a shocking truth. Some of the world's biggest companies had been carelessly storing mountains of sensitive customer data in snowflake accounts, guarded by nothing more than a simple username and password. No multi-factor authentication, no extra layers of security, just a digital welcome mat for anyone with the right set of stolen keys. The damage was done. The question remained, who would be next? Under the alias Kiber Phantom, Wagenius posted fragments of stolen phone records throughout a cybercrime forum in November. Just a taste of what he had. His message was clear: pay or everything goes public. Public threats were only the beginning. In private channels, Cameron was relentless. His target, known only as Victim 1, which was a reference to AT&T. The demand from Kiber Phantom was staggering. $500,000. The price of silence. The cost of keeping 110 million customers' secrets safe. Behind the screen, Cameron John Wagenius wasn't just another hacker. He was a predator continuously closing in on his prey, and he surely wasn't alone. Prosecutors would later reveal that Kiber Phantom ambitions mirrored those of his alleged co-conspirator, John Aaron Binns, a name that sent ripples through the cybersecurity world after already making history in the worst way, masterminding the 2021 T-Mobile breach that exposed the private data of 76.6 million customers. The breach was massive, one of the biggest in T-Mobile's history. The hackers had discovered a vulnerability buried deep in the telecom giant's wireless data network, a backdoor that led them straight into two of T-Mobile's customer data centers. Once inside, they didn't just take a peek, they took everything. More than 100 gigabytes of sensitive data was dumped, but the real shock came with what was inside. The hackers claimed they had scored an absolute goldmine, a database holding the personal information of 36 million T-Mobile customers in the U.S., stretching back to the mid-1990s. Names, dates of birth, social security numbers, driver's license details, plain text security pins, home addresses, phone numbers. It was all there, neatly packaged and ready for exploitation. And that wasn't even the worst part. The hackers also claimed to have obtained IMSI and IMEI numbers for those same 36 million customers. These unique identifiers, burned into every mobile device and SIM card, could be used to track phones, intercept calls, and clone devices. For anyone with the right tools and the wrong intentions. The breach was discovered after a Twitter name that goes by @undoxed was tweeting all of the secrets. A fairly elusive hacker who was later discovered as Bins also had gone by the handles IRDev and Vortex. When asked if @Intel Secrets was involved in the T-Mobile invasion, @Undoxed confirmed that he in fact was. Intel Secrets had taken Mirai's original source code and twisted it into something even more dangerous. Satori. What is Satori? Well, it's a botnet, and to simply explain how dangerous a botnet can be, imagine if a hacker could control thousands or even millions of computers at the same time, without the owners even knowing. A botnet is a network of infected computers called bots or zombies that are secretly controlled by a hacker known as a botmaster. These bots follow the hacker's commands and can be used for harmful activities, like launching attacks on websites called DDoS attacks to shut them down, stealing personal information like passwords and bank details, spreading viruses to other computers, sending spam emails to trick people into clicking bad links. But unlike its predecessor, Mirai, Satori made its ways around the underworld rapidly, hijacking vulnerable Internet of Things, IoT devices across the globe. This digital weapon didn't just crash networks, it was sold, traded, and wielded by many hackers to launch devastating DDoS attacks. Many who used it were eventually caught and prosecuted. One of them was Kenny Nexus Zeta Shukman, a young hacker who had pleaded guilty in 2019 to operating the Satori botnet. Two others had also faced charges, their cybercrime careers cut short by law enforcement's relentless pursuit. But Intel Secrets. He had slipped away, a phantom in the system, at least for a swift moment. Not long after his identity was confirmed from a slew of very unordinary lawsuits filed by a young lad who claims their real name is John Aaron Bins. Bins, a familiar name that is known to operate the website Intel Secrets, SU. On the Intel Secrets site, Bins shared a chilling tale of escape and betrayal. He claimed he fled to Germany and Turkey to dodge prosecution for his role in the Satori botnet. But in Turkey, his luck ran out. Bin says he was kidnapped and tortured, both mentally and physically. The shocking twist? He alleged that the CIA falsely labeled him as an ISIS supporter, leading Turkish authorities to capture and brutalize him. His story, if true, raised more questions than answers. Bins had always been one step ahead until he wasn't. Now, charged with a snowflake hack and subsequent extortion scheme, he is currently in a Turkish jail, far from the digital empire he once ruled. On October 30th, 2024, Canadian authorities moved in securing their third target, a man known by more than one name. As officers closed in, Alexander Moucka, also known as Connor Riley, had little time to react. The arrest was nothing out of the ordinary. It was the result of an urgent provisional warrant issued by the United States. For Moucka, who was now charged for the infamous snowflake hacks, behind the cold efficiency of the operation lay a web of intrigue, one that stretched deep into the world of cybercrime. Bloomberg had been the first to break the news. Moucka was allegedly tied to various hacker handles, Udiche, Waifu, and who knows how many others. These weren't just random aliases. They were aliases that also had correlation with not just cyber theft, but something more sinister. Western English-speaking cyber criminals working hand-in-hand with extremist groups, not just stealing data but engaging in psychological warfare. Harassment campaigns, online stalking, extortion schemes that didn't just ruin lives, they sometimes ended them. The COM is a known network, a cybercriminal hub that includes a number of groups with thousands of users, including hundreds of die-hard type of members who victimize children. By early May 2024, Udiche wasn't just lurking in the shadows anymore. Him and his companions were bragging. On May 2nd, inside StarChat, a fraud-focused Telegram channel, the hacker boldly declared that they had breached Santander Bank, one of the earliest known victims of the snowflake attacks. At first, it might have sounded like just another cyber criminal flexing for attention. But then, on May 13th, they repeated the claim, casually dropping the bombshell a full day before Santander publicly admitted they had been hacked. To those watching, it was clear. Moucka wasn't just some low-level script kiddie looking for clout. He was also plugged in, possibly even at the center of the entire snowflake breach operation. The 25-year-old software engineer is currently in legal limbo, his fate now resting in the hands of Ontario's Superior Court of Justice. Appearing remotely via audio link from jail, Alexander Moucka was no longer the faceless hacker, lurking behind encrypted messages. He was just another inmate waiting, with his comrades caught and awaiting their fate. The search for Kiber Phantom remained a priority for the U.S. Secret Service. Shortly after Moucka's arrest, Kiber Phantom instantly rushed to breach forums. His message? A brazen threat wrapped in defiance. In the event you do not reach out to us at AT&T, all presidential government call logs will be leaked. Attached to their post was an explosive claim. AT&T call logs for President-elect Donald J. Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. The hacker, emboldened, signed off with multiple free waifu hashtags, a war cry for their cause. But the chaos didn't end there. That same day, Kiber Phantom dropped another digital grenade, what they called the data schema of the U.S. National Security Agency. According to them, this was the spoils of the AT&T snowflake hack, a breach so devastating that AT&T allegedly paid off an extortion demand. Yet a mystery lingered in Kiber Phantom's words. Why would AT&T pay waifu for this data when they refused to pay for over 20 million stolen social security numbers? A game of cyber extortion was unfolding, one with high-profile targets, hidden players, and secrets too dangerous to remain in the dark. Who was Kiber Phantom was the ultimate question. Operating under @Cyber Phantom, he built a presence with over 4,200 messages, many seeking recruits to spread a malicious force, an IoT botnet enslaving machines across the internet. His arsenal? The Shibot, a custom Linux DDoS botnet crafted from the infamous Mirai malware. Before the Snowflake attack shook the cyber world in May 24, his trade was quieter, dealing in stolen databases from South Korea. But now, with his name tied to one of the biggest cyber extortion sagas, one question remains. Was Kiber Phantom always just a seller of stolen data, or was he building something much bigger? Well, a deep dive into the mysterious Kiber Phantom uncovered various aliases such as Batholio. On June 5, 2024, a Telegram user named Batholio dropped a bombshell, claiming to be Kiber Phantom after being mocked by a fellow member of the Comgirl fraud channel. In a bold, delusional move, Batholio invited those that questioned who he was to Google Kiber Phantom and promised them to be amazed with a trail of over 50 articles and 15-plus telecom breaches. The audacious claims didn't stop there. Batholio boasted about having the IMSI numbers of every person ever registered with Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verifone. A chilling piece of digital blackmail. But that wasn't the only odd detail. On September 17, 2023, in a Discord channel dedicated to the game Escape from Tarkov, Batholio casually mentioned being a U.S. soldier playing from Asian servers, a detail that sparked further mystery about his true identity and movements. Was Batholio just another alias, or had the infamous Kiber Phantom truly been hiding behind yet another mask? On January 4, 2024, the elusive Kiber Phantom surfaced once again, this time in DStat, a notorious Telegram channel where cybercriminals trade in DDoS attacks and for hire digital destruction. Among seasoned hackers and mercenary botnet operators, Kiber Phantom's presence signaled one thing. They weren't just selling stolen data anymore. Kiber Phantom whispered yet another new alias into the depths of DStat, a Telegram hub for digital chaos. @ReverseShell. Later, the name resurfaced in another dark corner called Cecilio, a shadowy chat filled with hackers and cyber mercenaries. In that Telegram channel, ReverseShell boasted yet again to a fellow member that they were a soldier in the U.S. Army. He also went as far to idiotically provide a picture of a soldier waist down in military fatigues with a camouflaged backpack at their feet. Archived logs from ReverseShell show also that when another cybercriminal launched a DDoS attack against him in September 2022, ReverseShell laughed it off. "Y'all just hit military base contracted Wi-Fi." These archived logs show by August 2022, he was already deep in the game, cracking US government servers, telecom systems, and even Russian ISPs, selling access for thousands. By July 2023, he upped the stakes, flaunting credentials to a major US defense contractor. In the tangled web of cybercrime, one name was never enough. Behind Cameron there was ReverseShell, but also Proman557, a figure lurking on hack forums in 2022, linking back to the notorious Batholio on Telegram. Meanwhile, on the Russian hacking forum Exploit, Proman557 was peddling Linux-based botnet malware, only to be unmasked as a scammer. When the moderators banned him, a chilling revelation followed. Proman 557 had once been known as Vars Sec. One name, many masks, each leading deeper into the shadows. Vars Sec's thousands of comments on Telegram over 2 years show this user divided their time between online gaming. He was obviously a fan of Escape from Tarkov, maintaining a DDoS botnet and promoting the sale or renting of their botnets to other users. On April 1, 2023, Cameron, under his alias Vars Sec, dropped another idiotic screenshot uncovering his true identity, the NSA's website, with proof they had just applied for a job there. But behind this alias lurked Kiber Phantom, a figure with many names and one startling connection. Signs pointed to them being a U.S. Army soldier stationed in South Korea. Cameron John Wagenius thought he was untouchable. With fellow hackers Binns and Moucka behind bars, he believed he could outmaneuver the law. But he never saw Allison Nixon coming. As the chief research officer at Unit 221B, Nixon and an anonymous colleague uncovered Kiber Phantom's true identity, tracking him down after Moucka's group foolishly threatened her company. Wagenius had spent years lurking in the shadows. Now, the hunt was over. On December 4, 2024, near Fort Hood, Texas, the law finally caught up with Cameron John Wagenius. Indicted on 2 counts of unlawfully transferring confidential phone records, the shadowy figure behind Kiber Phantom, Reverse Shell, and Vars Sec was no longer just a name in the cyber underworld. He was indicted, and all his devices were seized by Homeland Security. Even after federal agents seized his devices, Cameron John Wagenius refused to back down. His commanding officer issued a strict order: no more tech, no laptops, no tablets, no phones. Disobeying could mean serious consequences under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Wagenius acknowledged the order. Then, as you may have guessed, he ignored it. The very next day, he bought a new laptop and started using it in the barracks. But his defiance was short-lived. Army authorities swiftly seized the device, along with a receipt dated December 7th. For Wagenius, the situation was escalating rapidly. On February 19, 2025, Wagenius, also known as Kiber Phantom, made a calculated gamble, pleading guilty to 2 counts of unlawfully transferring confidential phone records, but without the safety net of a plea agreement. It was a risky move, one that left his fate entirely in the hands of the court. His attorneys, in a last-ditch effort to keep him out of jail before sentencing, petitioned the judge to allow him to remain under his father's supervision. They painted the picture of a young man who had made mistakes but wasn't beyond redemption. Someone who could await judgment from the comfort of home rather than a cold jail cell. The prosecution wasn't buying the image of Wagenius as a low-level offender who could be trusted to await sentencing at home. In a response filed on record, they laid out their argument. Wagenius wasn't just a hacker, he was a flight risk. Their reasoning: before his arrest, he had been frantically searching for ways to flee the United States and defect to a country that wouldn't hand him over. His search history read like a cybercriminal's last-ditch escape plan, including queries like, where can I defect the U.S. government military? U.S. military personnel defecting to Russia. Embassy of Russia, Washington, D.C. It wasn't exactly subtle. And it wasn't just idle curiosity. According to the government, Wagenius had been conducting these searches while Kiber Phantom was actively extorting AT&T, suggesting he knew exactly how much trouble he was in and was already plotting his exit strategy. For prosecutors, this sealed the deal. Wagenius wasn't just a kid who made a mistake. He was someone willing to run, and they weren't about to give him the chance.